Hi, Dove.
Hi, Pinchas.
How are you?
Baruch Hashem, how you doing?
It's cold here.
Yeah, like what in the 40s, 30s?
It was 15 degrees this morning.
Ooh, boy, I don't
So
even want to think about
I
it.
went to the second minion. I went to the last minion rather than the second minion. I just could not go out at even at 7 o'clock. I waited till 8 o'clock to go to shul, which I never do.
Boy, oh boy.
Now it's 25, so it's gone up 10 degrees. Tomorrow it's going to be warmer, but they say it'll rain a little. Not as much as in Israel, but you know,
Which city are you in?
we're near Teaneck. We're in Bergenfield, New Jersey.
Bergenfield.
But it's very cold.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, I always have Seaside Heights logged in. It's 30
Ah,
degrees according to
yeah, so that's a little warmer because it's on the
uh,
water.
yeah, it's always like that.
Yeah, has it started raining in Jerusalem yet?
Yeah, well, I think it's really called for tomorrow.
Right,
Um, it's supposed to be pretty heavy, I think. Yeah, Wednesday, 80% chance.
right.
There might have been some clouds today. I didn't see any rain today. Maybe yesterday a little bit.
Uh-huh.
80% tomorrow, 90% on Thursday, and 80% on Friday.
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty clear the storm is coming to you guys. So,
Yeah, they need the rain. How long? Do you know how long you're going to be there?
Ezrat Hashem, we're coming home. We're flying out on Monday morning. We'll be home on Tuesday morning,
Uh-huh.
and hopefully we will have finished all of, everything that we need to do while we're here. It'll be a successful trip. But my wife has been sick, so we haven't really been traveling around a lot. I went to my father last week on Thursday and Friday, and I'm going again tomorrow. He's a little sad, so he's like not really happy to see us. He just would rather sit and do nothing. But so I only go down when I have specific stuff to do with him. So that and tomorrow I have a lot of stuff to do with him. And yeah. And then we're going to make him a little Hanukkah party on Sunday. My son from Florida is coming up with all of his children, and my son from Bergenfield will come with his children, and me and my wife, and we'll do a little Hanukkah party like we always did.
Oh,
Um,
good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, was he in assisted living?
He's in a something called independent living.
Independent.
So
Okay.
he has aides with him 24/7, which we pay for, which he pays for. But yeah, so you know, he gets better care if he has an individual attendant to him. So he always has somebody with him now. So that means that, he's always being attended to. If he was in any other type of living situation, he would not have somebody at his, as they say, beck and call. So, you know,
Right.
that's what he worked for, to be able to pay for this stuff. So let him do it.
Good. Yes.
Okay.
Hi, good evening.
Good
Hi,
evening, Rav Khan.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
good evening. We have two people from New York.
Who else is in the city area?
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Kol hakavod for joining us. And Larry is here. Hi,
Yeah.
Larry.
Hi.
And David, good evening.
Evening.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have a, yeah, I start at all Panad, which goes from, 7:30 to 9:30. So when you go at 8, I'm usually there. So now that you're good, teaching at 6, I can make it.
okay. Thanks. We'll try to. Please let me know when is the best time for you during the winter. I'm not promising not to change the time, but I can 6, I can 8, so usually, so it's fine. Good evening, Morty. Erev Tov. Okay, let's start. We have at the beginning of the parasha the dream of Yosef. Actually, we think about two dreams. Okay, Yosef dreams and Vayisaper el aviv ve'el achav, and then he tells them about the stars and about the shibolim. Okay, the wheat or whatever. But it's a machloket with over the mefarshim whether there were two chalomot, as most Rishonim understand, or three chalomot, and then we understand the opening sentence, Vayachalom Yosef Chalom, Vayosifu Od Tznoato, without explaining what was the content. So what the content was. So according to some mefarshim, it's three chalomot, but we don't deal with how many chalamot he had, and even not in the content, but the posuk says, "Ve'aviv shamar et hadavar." Okay, ויראו אותו אחיו כי אותו אביהם מכל אחיו, ויחלום יוסף חלום, ויחלום עוד חלום אחר, ויספר אותו לאחיו, אוקיי, ויספר אל אביו ואל אחיו, ויגער בו אביו, ויאמר לו, מה החלום הזה אשר חלמת? נבוא אני ואמך ואחיך להשתחוות לך ארצה. So externally he screams at him, he's not happy with what he's doing, but the posuk ends with אביו שמר את הדבר, and the posuk hides two words. What does it mean ואביו שמר? What does it mean to keep, to save? What does it mean? ומה הפירוש? What does it mean? שמר את הדבר. Okay? Two short words in Hebrew, two possible explanations to each of them, and the pasuk doesn't say anything. Some of the meforshim, like Ibn Ezra, understand the shamar in his heart. Okay? He remembered it. Okay? Rashi and Rashbam and others understand more than that. He expected, he not only remembered what he dreamt, but he was expecting something to happen. שומר אמונים, כן? פיתחו שערים ויבוא גוי צדיק שומר אמונים. It's not just remembering the אמונים, but expecting the גאולה, the redemption, whatever. But sometimes in the Mikra, לשמור, to keep, is not only a matter of conscience, but also practical doing. Okay, the posuk says in Sefer Dvarim, הישמר לך פן תשכח את השם אלוקיך, לבלתי שמור מצוותיו. Okay, we say for a person who keeps the laws, you say shomer Torah v'mitzvot. What does it mean shomer? He doesn't remember the mitzvot. He doesn't expecting the mitzvot. He fulfills the mitzvot. Okay, so if we explain this third explanation, so shamar et hadavar doesn't mean that he remembered, doesn't only mean that he expected, but it means that he replied actively to what Yosef had dreamt before. Okay, so if you say that, so actively Yaakov replies in a way, in a certain way, okay, and in his heart he thinks something differently. Maybe the posuk doesn't relate to Yosef. Shamar et hadavar, Yaakov doesn't keep, remember, think, expecting what Yosef had dreamt, but he is talking about the condescending towards Yosef from his brother. Okay, they look down on him, and Yaakov pays attention to this looking down. So externally he says, no, it's not nice, don't do that, you rouse kin'ah, whatever, but inside his heart he believes in the dream. He believes that everything will come true. That's why we can explain now why he sent him to his brothers, because usually we think that Yaakov is just, not a careful father, or that he didn't know what was going on, the hatred between them and Yosef, so he mistakenly sent him towards Emek Dotan to see what's going on with them, and they took him and sold him. Okay, but it might be that Yaakov deliberately sent him to Emek Dotan in order to break the ice, as we say in Hebrew. I don't know what's the phrase in English. He deliberately knew that his brothers looked down on him and hated him, and therefore he, Bedavka, sends him to Emek Dotan in order to see somehow maybe they'll get along with him. Okay, but deliberately or undeliberately, Yaakov helps Yosef fulfill his dream, because by sending him to Emek Dotan, he leads to the whole circumstances of sending him to the pit hole and then selling him to the Ishmaelim and so on. Let's now go to what's going on in Emek Dotan. What do the brothers do in Emek Dotan? So Yaakov says explicitly, "Halo achecha ro'im bishchem, lecha ve'eshlachecha alehem." Okay, maybe they are ro'im bishchem at the same area that Yaakov has bought last week. B'me'ak sita, he bought a big piece of land, and maybe there the place has more bushes, has more leaves, whatever, for the sheep. Okay, but Dotan is not a part of the place that Yaakov bought, because Yaakov bought b'me'ak sita, just an area in Shechem. So Dotan must be out of the area that belongs to Yaakov's family. And if we say so the brothers shepherd their sheep in a place that was forbidden. It was Gezer, okay? And the depiction from this thought is that the brothers are very similar to Lot, to Ro'ei Lot, okay? According to Rashi, according to the Midrash, what was the dispute between Ro'ei Lot and Ro'ei Avraham? That Ro'ei Avraham said, you are Ro'im in a place that it's Gezer, okay? We don't want to be a part of it. But here we say that the same thing happened. They had a permission to be Ro'im in Shechem because it was theirs, but they led it to places that weren't belonging to the family, like Dotan, which is not far away from Shechem, and therefore Yosef might look at his brothers like Avraham at Lot, okay? And now we have to understand the fear of the brothers. The fear, they are afraid of Halshana, okay? He might give their secret to the father, tell them that they are not nice. You know, according to Chazal, Yosef was a big malchin. He said about Ever Minachai, they're eating Ever Minachai, and there are a lot of other things that his brothers did. But the pshat is that they were afraid that he would tell his father about them sheep herding in a place that doesn't belong to them. So they might be afraid of his al-shana. But what do they say explicitly? Hine ba lechalomot halazeh ba. So again, we spoke before about the ambiguity of Yaakov, that on the one hand, he believes in Yosef, on the other hand, he says, no, מה החלום הזה אשר חלמת, נבוא אני ואמך ואחיך להשתחוות לך ארצה. And now we see the same complexity, the same shniut, the same ambiguity with the brothers, because on the one hand, they are afraid of Halshana, but on the other hand, they're talk about the dream. What is the truth? Are they afraid of his dream, or are they afraid that he would give their secret to the father? So pay attention to what's going on in the parasha. I think it's a big key to understand the whole parasha. There are two chavurot, two gangs among Yaakov's sons. There are Bnei Leah, sons of Leah, the 6 sons of Leah, one gang, and there is another one, another group of the Bnei Hashfachot, Bnei Zilpa and Bnei Bilha, 4 people. And we have Binyamin, who is just a very young boy. Nobody pays attention to him. He is young, everybody loves him, etc. And we have Yaakov, who everybody hates. Okay? It's very interesting. Maybe I'll speak about it. That you cannot be, some people, people who went to India, so are divided into 2 groups. One that love India and one who hates India. Okay? Because people say that you cannot be indifferent to India. You can, it's in Italy, you can say, it was nice, okay, nice, more or less, whatever. In India, you either hate it or like it. So the same thing happens with Bnei Rachel. It's very interesting. You either like them the most, like everybody likes Binyamin, or hate him the most, like everybody hates Yosef. Rachel somehow go to the, to the extent, to the corners, but back to our subject, there are 2 groups of people. One, Leah's son, one, Bnei Bilha, Bnei Zilpa. We know that Yosef is afraid or friend of Bnei Hashfachot, okay? Why? Because according to Chazal, the sons of Leah are afraid of his alshanot. They are afraid of him, they keep far away, okay? But what's the problem with Bnei Hashfachot? They are not afraid of alshanot, but they still don't like his dreams, okay? So now we see 2 groups of people. Bnei Leah don't like Yaakov because he is a malshan. Bnei Hashfachot don't like Yosef, because not because he's a malshan, because he's Baal HaChalomot. So now we can understand that there are 2 groups. When Yosef comes next to his brothers, firstly he would go to his friends, the Bnei Hashfachot, and then Vayomru ish el achiv. They are not afraid of his alshana, but they are afraid of Hineh Baal HaChalomot al hazeh ba. Okay, they know that the dreamer is coming, is approaching. But later on, he would go to his brothers, to Leah's sons, and they hate him mamash for telling their secret every time to Yaakov. Okay? So, we see 2 psukim. ויראו אותו מרחוק, ובטרם יקרב עליהם, ויתנכלו אותו לעמיתו. That's the first pasuk when Yosef approaches Emek Dotan. Okay, ויראו אותו מרחוק הוא בני לאה. They hate him because of his alshanot, and therefore ובטרם יקרב עליהם, בטרם he would see something that he can tell his father, ויתנכלו אותו לעמיתו. But then we see another pasuk, ויאמרו איש אל אחיו, and usually we tend to interpret the pasuk as the same people who were speaking before. But they have decided, ויתנכלו אותו לעמיתו. Okay? הנה בעל החלומות על הזה בא. Why do they have to say it again? They have decided to judge him to death. So here we understand that there are 2 groups. The first one, Bnei Leah, hated him so much, ויתנכלו אותו לעמיתו. The second group of the Bnei Hashfachot were not so afraid of him because they were not afraid anything to lose. He could not give their secret to their father, but ויאמרו איש אל אחיו, הנה בעל החלומות הזה בא. They just didn't like him because of his חלומות. Okay. And it answers another issue, because we know that from the Parashat it's very clear that the Bechor, Reuven, lives among the Bnei Hashfachot. Why? Because now we can understand there are 2 levels of people. There are 2 groups. One, Bnei Leah. Second, Bnei Hashfachot. As we know, because of Maaseh Bilha, it's a last week parasha, he's descended 1 grade. Okay, so Reuven is not considered among the Bnei Leah. From now on, he is considered just with Bnei Hashfachot. Therefore, he sits with a gang of Bnei Hashfachot, and we'll see in a minute what it leads. But take a small break and think about what's going on when Am Yisrael gets into Eretz Yisrael, Dvarim Perek Kaf and Yoshua Perek Chet. So there is Har Grizim and Har Eival, right? 6 tribes at Har Grizim, 6 at Har Eival. אלה יעמדו על הברכה ואלה יעמדו על הקללה, okay? If you look there, you see Reuven among the Bnei HaShfachot. And you have to explain why this Bechor or whatever one, the first Shevet, is considered among the Bnei HaShfachot. But if you see, you might say that this distribution is from here. This parasha, Reuven is degraded from his Maila of being Ben Leah and is considered among Bnei HaShfachot. And he sits with Bnei HaShfachot and arranges the whole system of how to sell Yosef, and therefore he is one of them. And in Har Gezim and Har Eival, in Shechem, very similar place to the place that Yosef is sold, he will counted among the Bnei HaShfachot. Okay, so he tells Bnei HaShfachot to undress Yosef, take his dream coat, and they eat ויאכלו איתו לחם, okay? If you look at the parasha, you'll see a very misunderstanding in the psukim. There are basically a lot of things that are repeated twice, as we saw before. ויראו אותו מרחוק ויתנכלו אותו עמיתו, decision to doom him to death, and then ויאמרו איש אל אחיו הנה בעל החלומות הזה בא. We're used, to small talk, so we don't pay attention to that, because, okay, we decide something and then we talk about it. But in the Torah, there are a lot of misunderstanding with this parasha, because there are a lot of two sides, and we don't understand. But here you must say, later on, read it in the psukim, and you'll see that when they decide what to do, וישבו לאכול לחם עם ראובן, it must be not all the brothers, because they want to sell him to the Shayara coming, okay? And then you go back to the second group, Bnei Leah, okay? And Bnei Leah, Yehuda suggests that will sell. I'll read it for you, just a minute, okay? ויהי כאשר בא יוסף אל אחיו, ויפשיטו את יוסף את כותנתו, את כתונת הפסים אשר עליו, ויקחו וישליכו אותו הבורה, והבור ריק אין בו מים. Okay, so they threw him into the pit hole. וישבו לאכול לחם, ויישאו עיניהם ויראו, והנה אורחת ישמעאלים באה מגלעד, וגמליהם נוסעות, whatever, ויאמר יהודה אל אחיו, מה בצע כי נהרוג את אחינו, וכיסינו את דמו, לכו ונמכרנו לישמעאלים. Okay, so if you understand the whole sequence as one sequence, so you must say, okay, that throwing him into the pit hole is considered to Yehuda as מה בצע כי נהרוג את אחינו וכיסינו את דמו. And therefore he says, no, don't throw him into the pit hole, okay, לכו ונמכרנו לישמעאלים. Okay, but it's a repetition, because we've already spoken about the Ishmaelim, and it's very clear, okay, that they wanted to sell him. Okay, so you must say that there are two kvutzot, two groups. One, Reuven, they decided to undress Yosef, and they saw the Shayara coming. Bnei Leah, on the other group, see. Okay, and then Yehuda is the one who suggests to sell him to the Ishmaelim. Okay, but if you say that we have two groups, so it means that Bnei Leah sold him, and the missing Ben Leah, Reuven, who we said sits with the other group of Bnei HaShfachot, doesn't know anything about it. Then when coming later, he is astonished to find that Yosef is not in the bow, okay? Because he didn't know anything that his brothers did. Usually you say, like the Midrash, that Reuven hid himself, and tried and wanted to save Yosef at night, but he saw that he would not be able to do it, and he came back to the brothers, and then he realized that Yosef had already been taken from the pit hole. Okay, and that's why he was so surprised. But if you say that there are two groups, so Reuven is considered among the Bnei Hashfachot and doesn't know what his brothers Bnei Leah did. Okay, then they tell him. Okay, then they tell him lishchot, that would be shochet seirizim, and then another repetition. I'll read to you. Okay, וישחטו שעיר עזים ויטבלו את הכותונת בדם וישלחו את כתונת הפסים. וישלחו means by a messenger, by a servant, by שליח, נכון? From afar to their father. ויביאו אל אביהם ויאמרו זאת מצאנו, הקרנה הכתונת בנך היא אם לא. So decide, were they standing in front of Yaakov or were they afar? Okay, if they stand in Yaakov, I can understand the Kerna, that they show him the dream code, but then what does it mean Vayishalechu? Okay, Rashi has his solution to that, but what does it mean to Lishalech? The Shalech means that you are far, and if they are far, what does it mean Hakerna? But again, we have two kvutzot that do it. Okay, Vayishalchu is Bnei Leah. Okay, they send Bnei Hashfachot to do the bad job for them. They go to Yaakov with a ketonet, with a blood, and they show him and they say, okay, Akerna. And later on, there would come the Bnei Leah and Vayakumu Kol Banav, Kol Bnotav Venachamo. What does it mean, Kol Banav? Not only the first group of Bnei Hashfachot, but now all the five added tribes of Bnei Leah, excluding Reuven, they came and joined the Bnei Hashfachot and told Yaakov what happened, Kehilat. Okay, so we see two groups, and as we said, Reuven is not accounted on the on Bnei Leah. He is accounted on the Bnei Hashfachot, and they both have their fear, a different fear of Yosef. Bnei Leah hate him for Halshanot, Bnei Hashfachot hate him for his dreams, and everybody behaves differently with what they decide to do. Just to end, let's see the Ketonet, okay? If you remember the Tanakh, you know that there is another Ketonet in the Tanakh. Another Ketonet by Tamar. Tamar, not the Tamar from our parasha, but Tamar, the daughter of David HaMelech, the sister of Amnon, the sister of Avshalom. And if you remember, Avshalom loved her very much and raped her. And since she was raped, she and lost her virginity. So she tore her clothes and put some ash in her hair. Okay? And here, the tearing the dream code of Yosef might remind us of the same Tamar and make a comparison. Tamar was raped. Yosef was raped. He raped to leave his father. Okay, not physically, but ruchanit. He had to leave the family. He had to leave the father that he loved. Very similar to Dinah. Okay, and the psukim in Dinah saying ותצא דינה בת לאה אשר לילדה יעקב לראות בבנות הארץ. The beginning of the selling of Yosef starting with ויאמר לו לך נא ראה את שלום אחיך. וירא אותה שכם בן חמור אחיו נשיא הארץ with Dinah. ויראו אותו מרחוק. Okay, so the enemy, שכם בן חמור, the raper, or the rapers, כאילו, the brothers, the אחים, whatever, ויראו אותו מרחוק, ובטרם יקרב עליהם ויתנכלו אותו לעמיתו. ויקח אותה, שכם בן חמור, וישכב אותה ויעניה, ויקחו, וישליכו אותו הבורה והבורק, אין בו מים. Okay? So, the same thing happens in Dinah and happens in Yosef, and we have a comparison between the two stories. As we saw, Dinah is raped, Yosef is raped. Yosef is doomed to leave his family, to leave his father, and the Midrash says criticism why Shimon and Levi. It's not, it's not just comparisons that the modern contemplators say. The Midrash itself says, how dared you, Shimon and Levi, do what you did to Shem when you did the same thing to your brother? Okay? So the neglectance from your brothers when he was raped, when he was taken from the family, and doesn't enable you to react when you see that your sister is taken from the family. So we see again, let's sum up. We see firstly that Aviv shamar et hadavar. We saw that it's not just thinking, it might be practically that Yaakov behaved in two ways, okay? Externally, he was against Yosef, but internally, he really believed in him, okay? And he was against the looking down the brothers on their brother, and maybe he sent him to spy to see how they behave in Dutan. And when Yosef comes, so they are divided into two groups. One is afraid of him because of his Alshanot, Bnei Leah. One is afraid because of his dreams. They don't like him, he's not afraid. And they behave differently towards him. And that explains the differences, the gaps between the psukim. Sometimes there is a repetition. Sometimes they have decided something and then they reconsider it, and we don't understand why the Torah has to talk about the small talk between them. But now we understand that the first group has considered to do A, but the second group hasn't decided yet, and that's why the repetition comes. And they send the black, the bad black slaves, Bnei Ashfachot, to do just the bad job for them. And Bnei Leah come just later to join them. And Reuven lost his job, lost his superiority as a Bechor, and joined Bnei Ashfachot. Therefore, he joined them in Har Gerizim and Har Eival. And that at the end, we saw just the comparison between Maaseh Dinah and Maaseh Yosef, and maybe to relate to what the brothers did for him as a rape. Nowadays, after what happened with hostages, we might understand that undressing their brother is not just to take something from him and to show the father that is covered with blood, etc., etc. They could have thought about a better trick, but it might be like would not say sexual abuse, okay? But I would say that it's just philosophically, it's a matter of a very aggressive abuse. You're taken from the family. It's mamash like a rape. And that's mamash. When understanding the tzidkut of Yosef HaTzadik, we must understand that Yosef HaTzadik, not only that he was young, alone by Potiphar's house, far away from the family, but all the people were against him. Okay, he has to take to keep ne'emanut, to keep trust to the system that threw him away. Okay, to the religion. According to Chazal, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was a tenth to the minyan with them. Chazal say in Tanchuma that they wanted to make a swear, to make a cherem, that nobody will tell Yaakov anything. And then they said no, but Reuven wasn't there. So they had just 9. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu joined them, and that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't tell Yaakov anything. So according to the system, Yosef was, the whole system was against him. Not only the brothers, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. And even though Yosef believes in what he believes, never mind what the system made to him. And that's the unbelievable zchut of Yosef, how he stands there. and even though he doesn't sin, that's a big zchut that enables him to achieve what he has achieved. That's it for today. לילה טוב. בשורות טובות.
לילה טוב, תודה.
תודה.